Hey people, in this video we're going to cover the top areas you need to assess in order to ensure that your energy levels are optimal. And here's the thing. There's often just not one single cause of fatigue. So we have to look at all the areas that may be contributing to your body being tired and fix whichever problem area we find. And some of these may be obvious, and others may surprise you. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Be open to look at everything, even if you think you already have looked. And be open to the possibility that you may have missed something, or that your practitioner or doctor may have not fully resolved every one of those areas. So, the most obvious areas of concern are anemias, right? Iron deficiency anemia or B6, B12, pernicious anemias, those type of things. You can't be even a little bit anemic. I know some doctors say, oh, you're a little anemic, it's no big deal. Well, from an energy standpoint, and a nutritional standpoint, it's a huge deal. Because when you're anemic, as you can see from this diagram, you have too few cells. So you're not getting enough oxygen, and you're not getting enough nutrients, and you're not getting the important things to the cells of your body and your mitochondria in order to help you generate sufficient amounts of energy. So anemia is a huge deal. There's an animation that you may have seen leading up to this program, and in it I discuss some important anemias. So I'm going to just cut to that real quick. Let's take a look at that animation and review those. Number 2 is the non-negotiable. These are the no-can-dos. So the first one of these is anemia. Okay, there are lots of different kinds of anemia. There's iron, B12, B6. There's also some autoimmune anemias like pernicious anemia, and there's even more. Well, iron deficiency impairs thyroid hormone synthesis by reducing TPO. Well, TPO needs iron. And if you don't have enough iron, your body has to work a whole lot harder to get the energy it needs, which can leave you feeling tired and weak and irritable and unable to focus. B12 anemia is also a real issue for people with Hashimoto's. There's about a 40% rate of B12 deficiency in Hashimoto's and hypothyroid patients. And one reason for this is too little stomach acid. You need enough acid in your stomach to break down and absorb it. And this helps activate something called intrinsic factor that helps to convert and absorb that B12. Also, some people on a vegan or vegetarian diet wind up becoming deficient in B12. But B12 is also critical for energy. So if it's iron deficiency, then make sure you order an iron panel and check ferritin. If serum iron and ferritin are low, you'll need to supplement with iron. And here's a quick clinical pearl. If you have iron deficiency and a number of other vitamin and mineral deficiencies, then you may also want to investigate stomach acid levels. If your stomach acid is too low, it can lead to all kinds of deficiencies and malabsorption of important minerals, vitamins, and nutrients. And many people with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism have too little stomach acid. Other anemias you want to investigate are B12, B6, and possibly pernicious anemia, which is another autoimmune disease. And from a fatigue standpoint, all of these are really big deals because if you're anemic, you aren't getting sufficient oxygen or nutrients to the cells of your body. And then you're fighting a losing uphill zero-sum energy battle game. It's not working. And a lot of doctors will say, oh, your iron's a little low, it's no big deal. Well, baloney. It is a big deal. And you need to address it immediately. You can't be even a little anemic if you want energy. In the written materials, I've given you a handout on what blood tests to order and what to do about these various anemias. So check that out. The next thing is blood sugar imbalances. Again, let's review the animation. Okay, non-negotiable number 3 are blood sugar imbalances. There are really 2 different kinds of blood sugar problems, and many people with Hashimoto's have kind of a mixture of both. And these are hypoglycemia, which means too little sugar in the blood, and insulin resistance, which is too much sugar in the blood. With Hashimoto's, both of these blood sugar problems can make things worse. Hypoglycemia is really a condition where you don't have enough cortisol to raise blood sugar to the normal level. And there's a big connection between the adrenal glands and sugar. In fact, we often see adrenal fatigue and hypoglycemia going together. And the problem is this repeated cortisol release causes low blood sugar, and that suppresses pituitary function. And the pituitary is the master gland in the brain that instructs the thyroid. This is where TSH comes from. Pituitary releases TSH to stimulate the thyroid. And where do we have a problem from the adrenals? Yep, you guessed it, in the thyroid. Cortisol also directly inhibits the enzyme that converts T4 into T3. T3 is what your body uses. And this can lead to low T3 levels. And high cortisol will cause thyroid hormone receptor insensitivity, means that even if T3 levels are high enough, it may not be able to bind normally to the receptor sites. And when this happens, it doesn't get in the cells. And when it doesn't get in the cells, it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, you feel crappy and tired. Cortisol will also increase the production of reverse T3, and reverse T3 is inactive. It's kind of like the anti-hormone. Reverse T3 can cause production of stuff known as thyroamines that can cause hypothyroid symptoms like fatigue, along with high blood sugar. The other type of blood sugar problem is caused by too much blood sugar. This causes insulin resistance. When you eat too many carbs and too much sugar, the pancreas secretes insulin to move extra glucose out of the blood into the cells where glucose is used to produce energy. But over time, the cells lose their ability to respond to insulin. When the pancreas pumps out even more insulin in an effort to get glucose into the cells, this eventually causes insulin resistance. Insulin resistance or too much sugar every day increases destruction of the thyroid gland in autoimmune thyroid disease, Hashimoto's. Insulin resistance can also cause a reduced conversion of T4 to T3. See, there it is again. T4 isn't converted into T3, and it doesn't work. You feel crappy and tired. But when this is dealt with by getting off of sugar and moving on to something more like a paleo diet, the cells can once again start using glucose for energy, and T3 production picks up. This improves your energy. You start feeling better. Blood sugar issues are some of the most important and for some reason often most overlooked issues. Where do your brain and your muscles get energy? From sugar. You know, as you saw in the animation, people can have a couple of different types of sugar problems. Right? So you can be hypoglycemic or have too little sugar in the bloodstream, or insulin resistant, which is usually caused by too much sugar. And on today's sugar-soaked culture, that's really common. Right? So we got to stop the madness. And if you suffer from constant fatigue, I highly recommend you buy a glucose meter and measure your fasting and postprandial or after meal sugar levels. In my book, Roadmap to Remission, I discuss exactly how to do that. And I'll put a supplement in the materials here that also gives you those instructions. And here's the basics on this. Start the day with a good protein and fat combination. Avoid all refined sugars, soda, and eat smaller and more frequent meals throughout the day. And if you have a sugar addiction, you have to deal with it. You won't fix your fatigue problem until you do. Blood sugar balance is a really, really big deal. Next is the brain. The brain is hugely impacted by Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. In fact, I created an entire program that focuses only on this because I'm so passionate about it. And frankly, it freaks me out that so many other practitioners and doctors don't even seem to discuss it. And a lot of fatigue is brain-based. Mitochondria in the brain is vulnerable to destruction. So if you have brain inflammation, they can get wiped out. And having a healthy brain is also essential for so many functions, especially energy. So we have to do everything we can to nourish our brains, to stimulate our brains, to get enough oxygen to our brains, to make sure we're getting enough blood flow to the brain so your blood pressure can't be low, make sure we get enough sugar to the brain, so we got to be careful with that sugar balance again. Critically important for brain function. And the next is the gut. Gut is another area that's very, very important for energy. Right? Many researchers refer to the gut. There's a nervous system in the gut called the enteric nervous system, and a lot of researchers refer to this as your body's second brain. And what goes on in the gut influences the brain to a huge degree. They're very closely related. Also, the gut is where we absorb all these important nutrients, vitamins, and minerals. If your gut's not working properly, you have malabsorption, you may not be getting enough fuel. Inflammation in the gut and issues like leaky gut where we have the tight junctions breaking down. You get particles in the bloodstream, fragments of proteins and other things that shouldn't be there. That can lead to systemic inflammation, which can end up blocking energy levels. That inflammation can again cause brain inflammation, which the mitochondria is very sensitive to. So the gut is hugely, hugely important from an energy standpoint. We have to heal the gut. What we also have to do is heal the liver. Right? If your liver is backed up and clogged, then you may not be able to process environmental toxins. There are many circulating hormones like estrogen that gets built up and doesn't get cleared out of the body because it's not properly metabolized by the liver when the liver is not functioning properly. Also, thyroid hormone is converted there. 60% of thyroid hormone conversion from T4 to T3 happens in the liver. So the liver is another area that's critically important for energy. So we have to make sure we get the liver functioning, clean it up if necessary, do a liver cleanse. There's a great product that I put in the list of supplements. It's called Clearvite. Be sure to check that out. Next are adrenal issues. This is another super important area for energy. Right? They're closely linked to blood sugar issues because when your sugar crashes or your sugar spikes, the adrenals are recruited. Cortisol helps to counterbalance insulin issues. Also, your adrenals are totally tied into your sleep cycle and your circadian rhythm. Right? Cortisol and melatonin are mirror opposites. When one goes up, the other one goes down. So they're essentially managers of your body's energy clock. So it's really important to deal meaningfully with stress and to heal your adrenals. And finally, of course, is the thyroid. Right? The thyroid is responsible for so many different systems of the body, but particularly important for generating energy and metabolic rates. So we got to make sure the thyroid's functioning right. We got to make sure that we're producing enough thyroid hormone, that we're converting enough thyroid hormone, that we're absorbing enough thyroid hormone. We also have to be really careful to make sure the thyroid is not being too aggressively attacked by the immune system. So we have to calm inflammation, the systemic inflammation that can be caused by a number of different things, by what's happening in the gut, by what's going on in the liver, what's going on with the foods that we eat. So super important. All of these issues are critical for good energy. So recap, quick. What are they? Anemia. Very important. Do not ever be anemic, not even a little. Blood sugar balance. Right? Make sure you're not hypoglycemic or insulin resistant or hyperglycemic. Sugar balance is critical. The brain. We got to pay attention to our brain, heal our brains. Make sure there's no or low brain inflammation. Keep the inflammation in the brain down. Give enough blood flow to the brain, enough stimulation, enough sugar and oxygen. The gut. We got to make sure we heal the gut. We don't have leaky gut. We don't have the breakdown of the barrier systems. We have to make sure we heal the liver. The liver is critically important for so many things. Then the adrenals. Got to make sure the adrenals are functioning properly. Got to make sure we deal with stress. We have to have a real stress strategy, not just know abstractly that stress is a factor. And finally, the thyroid. Of course, we have to heal the thyroid. So those are the main things. Again, check out the handouts. There's detailed information on how to assess these problems. There's detailed information on how to test for these problems with a lot of clinical pearls that I put in there. I've never been so detailed with testing before, so you're going to be thrilled with all that great information. And there's also detailed information on what supplements I use and how to use them. And also we've talked about diet. Now in terms of diet, I think the critical thing to think about here is it's got to be nutrient dense for energy. We got to be really careful with blood sugar balance, so we got to avoid the refined sugars and refined carbohydrates. I think we should be cautious about grains. I think we should be cautious about dairy. I think dairy from the U.S. is some of the worst dairy on the planet for a variety of reasons. Many people have issues with it, so I highly recommend avoiding, of course, gluten, dairy, and soy. I think we've got to be cautious about nightshades. What we want to do is eat a diet that's really rich in nutrient-rich foods. So fish are very important, seafood. Organ meat is very, very nutrient dense, very helpful. Bone broth, I think, can be helpful. You got to be careful with bone broth because it is high in histamine and some people react to that. We want to eat a diet that's got plenty of vegetables in it, dense, nutrient-dense proteins, and lots of good fats. So again, coconut oil, avocados. We saw how important omega-3 fatty acids are. So those fish oils, alpha-lipoic acid too, the fat-soluble vitamins of vitamin D and vitamin A. Super important, all of these. All right, so that's it for now. We're going to jump to the next series of videos. So make sure you check out all those things that I mentioned. Check out the handouts for how to assess for these issues properly and what to do about them. I'm Marc Ryan, licensed acupuncturist and herbalist from Hashimoto'sHealing.com. Be good, be kind. Remember to have compassion for everyone, including yourself and your mitochondria. Hope, help, and healing with a hint of humor. Hashimoto'sHealing.com.